to the Pokemon Video Game Masters Division Finals. You look very excited, and I am also very excited to introduce you to our finalists. Please give a warm round of applause for Jeremy Rodriguez and Justin Burns. The crowd already can't stand it. Are you guys ready to show us a good match? Awesome. Go ahead and take your seats, guys. We can't wait to watch you. And casters, take us away.
Oh, definitely going to be a great match here in Columbus. Both of these players, Justin Burns and Jeremy Rodriguez, we already mentioned a little bit, flying under the radar, ready to show the world that they mean business headed into Nashville.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of talk about these guys' accomplishments before we start this, because both of these actually have been regional champions before. They performed very well on the regional level. Justin has, I think, made it to the day 2 of the last 3 World Championships, almost made that top cut last year, finishing 4 and 3. So even making it to day 2 of Worlds is difficult now that we have, you know, the 2-day format before the final top cut. So Justin has been a player that I know has been on my radar for quite a while now. Jeremy has had a very, very impressive season as well. We do take a look at Justin's accomplishment. Did win the Seattle Regionals in 2017 and was a finalist at the St. Louis Regionals, not to mention multiple World Championship qualifications in that second day.
Absolutely. His Regionals finalist and a championship under his belt, adding North American International Championship finalist as well already. Of course, by his performance here this weekend over the course of both days and now today on Sunday, he has also managed to qualify for Worlds again, thanks to his strong showing here. He is running a team that we have seen a few times over the course of the weekend, that Tapu Fini, Metagross, Zapdos, Therian, Landorus Therian form, Amoonguss, and that Incineroar. We've already seen him piloting this team at an incredibly high level, able to make some really difficult, hard reads and keep momentum in his favor. But if he's going to be the champion here in North America, in Columbus, Ohio, he has to get through Jeremy Rodriguez first.
Yeah, one fun fact about Justin is that he actually wasn't qualified for day 1 of the World Championships before this tournament, so there was actually a lot riding on this for him. For a lot of players in this North American Internationals, they'd already qualified for Worlds, and there wasn't as much on the line, I would say. But for Justin, you know, he knew he had to place in the certain position in order to get that Worlds invite, so he's obviously gotten his invite at this point, and he's looking to get that first title as well in the international stage.
Absolutely, and Jeremy Rodriguez will be his opponent here in the finals. You can see he has a number of regional championships from back in 2015 and 2017. Best placement so far this season has been a top 8 at the Roanoke Regional. So adding a finalist appearance here in the North America International Championships, really elevating his profile heading into the World Championships. Running a team that I think we actually started off, or came very early on in the tournament, saw the Drifblim and Tapu Lele Metagross core, alongside Amoonguss, the Rotom Heat, and the Landorus Therian form. So it's fun to book in the tournament with a team like this.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me really happy to see Drifblim Tapu Lele return, because that was a combination that was incredibly powerful in the VGC 2017 metagame. And these teams are actually quite similar in how they function. Both of them have a Tailwind user, Drifblim with Tailwind and Zapdos with Tailwind, and both have the core of Metagross, Amoonguss, and Landorus. So I'm really excited to see how this one plays out, because I think there's small intricacies in both teams that will really end up determining how this game goes. And we're ready. We're going into team preview right now.
Yeah, these players wasting no time at all. Justin Burns, Jeremy Rodriguez. One of these 2 players will be your North American International Champion after just 2 or 3 games. Looks like Jeremy has already made up his mind on what Pokemon he wants to send. Both of these players probably spending all of last night trying to game out how this first turn is going to go and how to react in game.
Yeah, I think I'd be really surprised to see either player bring Amoonguss into this matchup, and I think Tailwind is going to be essential. Both players have a way of setting up Tailwind. Zapdos Tapu Fini combination from Justin and the Drifblim Tapu Lele combination from Jeremy. I think Rotom Heat's also going to be a really essential Pokemon in this matchup for Jeremy specifically, because of how much damage it can do. We saw yesterday that it was the Z-move variant, which can potentially one-shot something like that Tapu Fini. So we're going to get right into this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something like Drifblim Tapu Lele versus Zapdos Tapu Fini right away, but we'll have to see.
All right, both players heading into game 1 now. This turn 0, deciding which Pokemon they're actually going to send out to represent them here in Columbus. In one of the most important matches of both of these players' tournament careers, Tapu Fini Zapdos. will be the leads coming out from Justin, and Metagross and Rotom coming out from Jeremy, actually. So Justin being the person to threaten Tailwind, while Jeremy just going for some offensive pressure with that Metagross and that Rotom.
Yeah, I like the decision on Jeremy's end actually not to lead Drifloom Tapu Lele if he's predicting the Zapdos Tapu Fini, because most of the times the Tapu Fini will be slower, meaning Psychic Terrain will be negated. Zapdos has a pretty optimal matchup against Drifloom. One of the problems with Drifloom is even with the Unburden and the Psychic Seed, Thunderbolt still does a lot of damage to him. I think Zapdos Tapu Fini normally wins that matchup. So Jeremy kind of switching it up a little bit, bring the Metagross and Rotom Heat, and one thing we have to really wonder is whether this Rotom Heat is faster or not than the Tapu Fini, because if it is, then we could potentially just see it launch a Z-move into it. I expect Justin to play relatively conservatively here, maybe go for a Protect and Tailwind play right away.
Well, Jeremy not going on the offensive with that Rotom. Will be switching out the Tapu Lele to maintain control of the terrain. That Psychic Surge, setting the Psychic Terrain, boosting the power of that Metagross, and activating any Misty or the Psychic Seed on Drifblim. Metagross on Justin's side will be switching in as well, able to take advantage of that terrain for Justin's team, but Jeremy going ahead and Mega Evolving his Metagross, ready to go on the offensive with that Pokemon. It can deal a lot of damage with a Zen Headbutt in this Psychic Terrain to that Zapdos. Not enough to pick up the KO. Zapdos hanging on just barely there, 10 hit points, enough to get off the roost and heal itself back up. Now Metagross and Zapdos on Justin's side, but Zapdos able to heal, but not able to deal any damage whatsoever that last turn.
Yeah, no damage and no Tailwind, more importantly. I thought Justin had an opportunity to set up Tailwind there. Maybe he was expecting a double up into that slot and wanted to just get a free switch into his Metagross. But for Jeremy, that's actually pretty good because now he knows that the speeds are at least still somewhat in his favor. Metagross in a really good position here for both players, and Tapu Lele doesn't want to risk getting hit by something like an Iron Head. Gonna go right back into that Rotom Heat.
Yeah, Metagross too scary for Tapu Lele out on the field. Has to switch out for Rotom Heat. The brave little toaster oven is way better suited to attacking that Metal Crab. Justin will also switch out for Incineroar, getting an Intimidate off onto the Mega Metagross on Jeremy's side. Without that Clear Body ability, no longer able to avoid the attack drop there, which means that Justin's Mega Metagross now the strongest Metagross on the field, and will be immediately firing back with a Stomping Tantrum, dealing just under 50% damage to Jeremy. Jeremy firing back with a Stomping Tantrum of his own, deals good damage to the Incineroar. Catches the Incineroar on the switch and deals some damage, but intimidated and alongside Rotom Heat right now.
Yeah, that's a nice play, though, to get that much damage off against Incineroar. Incineroar is really bulky, especially with the ability to Psycho and Intimidate, so nice call there. Rotom also now does threaten both of these Pokemon. Incineroar can't fake out the Metagross, of course, because of that Psychic Terrain. And one thing I also want to know is how these Metagross' speeds match up with each other. Of course, able to fake out Rotom, though, because it's not grounded.
Yeah, can't fake out the Metagross, but can fake out the Rotom Heat. Another Stomping Tantrum is not enough to pick up the KO. Metagross hanging on with another 1 hit point survival there. Fires back another Stomping Tantrum against Justin, dealing a little bit of damage as well. You can see the difference in Intimidate making itself apparent there, but just barely hanging on there. Justin misses out on the KO by 1 hit point.
Yeah, Justin's Metagross has moved first now twice before Jeremy, so I have to wonder whether this is a speed tie that we typically see with Metagrosses or whether Justin's is just faster. Does prevent Rotom from getting an attack off, and I think Rotom is still a really major threat to Justin's entire team if you look at who he has, especially if there's no Zen Headbutt on that Metagross. Incineroar won't be able to do much damage. Tapu Fini will have to try to avoid getting an electric type attack, and we actually do see Amoonguss, so Amoonguss does come out in this matchup.
Yeah, so Jeremy did actually opt to bring in the Amoonguss. Like catches, and oh no, the Ice Punch catches the Rotom Heat. Deals a little bit of damage. We are going to see that Electrium Z, the Gigavolt Havoc, coming out from the Rotom Heat.
It's going to be a big attack regardless of whom it targets here. So Amoonguss coming out, not something I quite expected in this matchup, but it's still pretty good for Rage Powder support. It does have to worry about the Tapu Fini coming back in and setting up the Misty Terrain. But let's see who this goes into. Goes to the Incineroar, and I think this should be just a knockout right now.
That's a lot of damage and an easy KO onto Incineroar. Of the Pokemon that we've seen from Jeremy, Incineroar super threatening to that team, so a huge knockout for Jeremy to pick up on that Incineroar.
Yeah, one of the nice things about the Amoonguss being out here is even though it can't score, it can Rage Powder attacks away, and we did see the Watarium Z, I believe, on this Tapu Fini yesterday, so able to kind of negate that attack should it try to go for it. I don't think a Muddy Water would be able to knock out Rotom from this range. It would be close depending on how these Pokemon are trained, but Amoonguss, of course, right now can't Spore, so it's pretty much forced to Rage Powder or maybe switch out.
Yeah, Rotom Heat also threatening a lot of offensive damage against both Metagross and the Tapu Fini. Of course, without that Z Crystal anymore, won't be able to use the Gigavolt Havoc again, but Thunderbolt still deals a lot of damage, and so does Overheat.
Yeah, Overheat absolutely will knock out the Metagross from the range limits should it connect. Can't Will-O-Wisp if it has it, but at this point, probably wants to go for a knockout anyway. No protects, no switch shots, just straight offense right now.
No Rage Powders either, just straight Iron Head onto Amoonguss. An Overheat coming out from the Rotom Heat connects with Metagross, picks up the KO there as well. So Jeremy picking up 2 quick KOs over the last couple of turns. Deals a lot of damage, and another Muddy Water coming out from Tapu Fini. Connects with both the Amoonguss and the Rotom. It's not enough to pick up the KO.
Oh.
Does get an accuracy drop though. Amoonguss with a clear Smog will be targeting that Tapu Fini for some damage and making sure that if Justin ever decided to use Calm Mind, not going to happen here. But Zapdos and Tapu Fini gonna have to make something happen against this Rotom and Amoonguss.
Yeah, Jeremy going for that little bit of chip damage, which actually goes a long way in this matchup, especially because that Tapu Fini doesn't have means of recovery. So it is a 2-4 deficit right now for Justin. Not the end of the world necessarily, but because Zapdos isn't grounded, it potentially could get spored, and Tapu Fini can't knock out the Amoonguss. So unless it's got some way to stop the Amoonguss from sporing, I think Amoonguss here does have a relatively free opportunity of sporing Zapdos. Of course, Zapdos could go for something like a Heat Wave, but then you won't be able to outspeed the Metagross. So he does get that Tailwind up, but the Zapdos might just be put to sleep right now.
Yeah, just gonna be a Tailwind. Justin missed the opportunity to get the Tailwind for free on that first turn. Instead, getting it now, what, 6 or 7 turns deep, but no Rage Powder either. So just going to be the Hydro Vortex coming out from Tapu Fini. Not going for another Muddy Water. Took that Thunderbolt from the Rotom Heat pretty well.
Who is it going to target? That's the question. Now, you'd imagine maybe try to target Amoonguss to try to get the knockout. It is going to go to Amoonguss. This is going to be big if it knocks out. Let's see if it's enough.
Mushrooms typically like dark, damp places.
Oh, it survives!
Happy to take that Hydro Vortex. Just
and
barely
it all the way back up, and that's going to be a score in his Zapdos. That's most likely going to be the game there. Justin had to find a way to kind of maneuver this board position. He went for the Tailwind because if he doesn't Tailwind, Metagross will be able to come out, just outspeed everything if you knock out the Amoonguss. So
Tapu Fini still under Tailwind, able to threaten some Muddy Waters, may be able to make something happen with accuracy drops if it can connect. But we'll need a miracle here.
Yeah, Zapdos is going to want to wake up quickly if Justin wants any chance of winning this game, especially because that Tapu Fini doesn't have any means of recovery with the berries, so even clear Smog is going to be doing some good damage. You can even bring out the Tapu Lele to potentially spore the Tapu Fini as we see. So Amoonguss here might go for a spore, might go for, I mean, I'd probably spore here, but and an avoid.
Yeah, an avoid on the Muddy Water is not what Justin needs to make something happen. Damage connects to Amoonguss, takes a little bit of damage, doesn't pick up a accuracy drop, so Spore will connect to Tapu Fini. And Jeremy, really strong play here, still has all 4 of his Pokemon, and looks like he's going to be taking game 1 just about 4-0.
Yeah, really, really impressed by how Jeremy played this. He didn't end up going with Drifloon Tapu Lele, meaning like he didn't have a means of setting up Tailwind, but he figured like he could just brew offense enough through it. And the Amoonguss actually put in a lot of work because of its ability to spore the Zapdos even with terrain up, and because it wasn't really worried of getting, one-shotted by something like a Metagross, which often actually doesn't even carry Zen Headbutt nowadays.
All right, both of Justin's Pokemon still asleep. Of course, Zapdos had an opportunity to wake up. Tapu Fini did not. That Psychic from Tapu Lele easily picking up that KO thanks to the terrain as well and that Life Orb. That Tapu Lele is going to be dealing some serious damage, and Rotom Heat not enough to take out not knocked out earlier, threatening that Thunderbolt immediately onto Tapu Fini as well.
Yeah, really commanding here by Jeremy. I'm quite impressed by how he played, and I think a lot of it came down to the lead that he had immediately. He made some really nice calls with his Mega Metagross as well, despite it moving after Justin. So I thought that's a really, really well-managed game, and Justin's gonna have to go back to the drawing board in order to figure out how to approach the second game, because that felt like a pretty dominating game 1 from Jeremy.
Absolutely. Tapu Fini still asleep. Rotom protecting itself. Jeremy protecting his 4-0 in this game 1 of the finals of the North American International Championships. That is a huge momentum swing for Jeremy. 4-0, didn't lose a single Pokemon, in control of that game from turn 1. Justin is going to need to make something happen if he's going to have a hope of coming back from that kind of deficit.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to point out too is that Jeremy does actually have Zen Headbutt on his Metagross. A lot of Metagrosses often will forego that to run a moveset of Iron Head, Stomping Tantrum, Ice Punch, and Protect. So even with teams with Tapu Lele, a lot of those Metagrosses will carry something like Ice Punch. But the Zen Headbutt there was so huge against the Zapdos.
Yeah.
Didn't get the knockout, but did so much damage. And Justin did have an opportunity to Tailwind in the beginning of that game. I think like Zapdos, Tapu Fini is still an okay lead, but you know, the Tapu Fini is often forced to switch out immediately if the Rotom Heat comes out. So
yeah, just going for a Roost that turn 1 to heal a little bit of the damage, not enough. You needed more out of Zapdos from there.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels like the Metagross Rotom Heat combination is actually incredibly strong from Jeremy. Just looking at what Justin can go for, I mean, you're not really going to bring a Moongus against that. If you bring Incineroar, you can, at best, maybe fake out the Rotom, but Metagross can just Stomping Tantrum and it won't be intimidated. Zapdos takes a lot of damage from both of those. Landers won't be able to intimidate right from the get-go with the Metagross. So it feels like, I don't know, maybe Justin should go with just Zapdos, Tapu Fini again. His Metagross also can put on a little bit of pressure, but it doesn't look like it has really any way to hit that Rotom Heat. So that's why I think Rotom Heat has been such an important Pokemon for Jeremy in this matchup, and we did see him play really, really well with it, alongside the Amoonguss, which I still am really impressed by how he was able to navigate. One of the biggest calls he made that last game, not going for that Rage Powder, and then the Z move didn't come out there, so Rotom was able to get more mileage right there.
Yeah, really difficult for Justin to deal with that Rotom Heat with the Pokemon that he has. The Tapu Fini, of course, being probably Tapu Fini and the Landorus probably being the best options, but opted not to bring the Landorus last time, had to rely on the Tapu Fini, which is always threatened by the Thunderbolt there.
Yeah, and I think Landorus is still kind of a tricky Pokemon to bring here because you know, how it matches up against Metagross specifically, you'd have to bring it after the Metagross Mega Evolves, and so I think it's a little bit tough to maybe lead Landorus because you do want to get that Intimidate in. So we do see Zapdos, Tapu Fini come in again from Justin. I think that's his best lead matchup, even if it didn't look that great the last game.
All right, the same leads for both players in Game 2. As a reminder, last time these 4 Pokemon stared each other down, Jeremy won 4-0. Justin needs to make some changes in how he plays this matchup. Something's gonna have to give here, or else he will be going home as only the runner-up. Needs to win this match in order to force a Game 3 and keep his tournament hopes alive.
Yeah, and you know, like you mentioned, exact same leads from last time. Once again, the Tapu Fini potentially in threat of just a Z move from Rotom. So I think Justin's gonna have to make some big calls here. Last time he didn't set up the Tailwind immediately, so maybe this time around he can adapt and go for that, because we saw that the Metagross isn't able to knock out the Zapdos even with the Psychic Terrain boost instead Headbutt. It is gonna switch out again, doesn't want to get knocked out by that Z move, and goes into Metagross.
Yep, switch into Metagross from Justin, bringing that Pokemon out, while Jeremy going to go ahead and Mega Evolve his own Metagross. No switch out this time to create the Psychic Terrain, so not as threatening with the Zen Headbutt, but actually the Stomping Tantrum will connect with the Metagross on the switch. That's a lot of damage. Justin gets the Tailwind up this time, but if that Rotom Heat attacked the Metagross, that's so much offense down. Going to be the Gigavolt Havoc coming out from the Rotom.
We'll have to see who it targets here. If it is that Metagross, that's a major threat out of the way. Metagross in their tail and one of the scariest Pokemon to go up against. Let's see if this is going to go into it or if it's going to go to Zapdos. I think it's probably going to go into the Metagross slot, though.
Yeah, Gigavolt Havoc clearly attracted to the Lightning Rod of the Metallic Metagross. Picks up that KO cleanly, and Jeremy playing one step ahead. Justin gets the Tailwind up this time, but loses a huge offensive threat in his Metagross. Yeah,
Jeremy kind of calling Justin out there for not protecting with Tapu Fini. That's often something you could do. You know, I was surprised both games where Tapu Fini didn't just protect and Tailwind. Instead, gets the knockout onto Metagross. That is just such a big deal because of how good Metagross is in this matchup, especially the ability to go for Stomping Tantrums against Jeremy. So really nice call there, but now Justin at least does have a fully healthy Tapu Fini and Zapdos in multiple turns of Tailwind. These next couple of turns, Jeremy's probably going to go on the defensive, maybe protect, switch out, especially if he has that Amoonguss, a good Pokemon to bring in to kind of redirect attacks away. So I think, yeah, Jeremy, these next few turns really should just focus on stalling out this Tailwind and then going from there, because once Tailwind's over, he's going to have Metagross. Justin no longer has Metagross, and the combination of something like Metagross and Tapu Lele, if Jeremy brought the same Pokemon, would be really good. So probably double protect here.
Yeah, on the flip side, incredibly important for Justin to get as much damage down as possible just to protect coming out from Metagross, not a double protect. Heat Wave connects a little bit of damage to the Rotom. Tapu Fini with the Muddy Water did not go for the Hydro Vortex, but will connect with Rotom Heat, dealing some damage right back to Rotom. Survives pretty handily and fires back with a Thunderbolt onto that Tapu Fini, dealing about the same amount of damage.
That's another nice play from Jeremy there. Doesn't end up protecting the Rotom, which is in threat of getting knocked out by a Hydro Vortex, but instead Rotom actually doesn't faint. And anytime you can prevent a Pokemon from getting knocked out under Tailwind, you know, you just waste another turn of the Tailwind, and Rotom does have the option to protect this turn. So really great play there. Z-move doesn't end up coming out, and I mean, Tapu Fini takes so much damage from that Thunderbolt. So this turn around, I think maybe you protect the Rotom, switch Metagross out. But the combination of Heat Wave and Muddy Water does do a lot of damage though right now. Justin doesn't have to. No protect.
No protects, no switches, just damage coming out. Heat Wave deals a little bit to the Metagross, deals a little bit to the Rotom Heat as well. Going for the Hydro Vortex, so no Muddy Water. That means if Justin's targeting down the Metagross, we'll be able to pick up a KO on that Pokemon, but Rotom Heat will still be around to deal damage back without the spread attack of that Muddy Water. So we'll try to flush that Metagross down the drain here with the Hydro Vortex. Now, Rotom Heat's going to need to fire back and avenge its pal, the Metagross.
Yeah, so once again, Jeremy playing rather offensively under this Tailwind.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense because of, if you look at the board position, Justin's only able to knock out one Pokemon. And Jeremy can trade that one Pokemon, and he's already up that knockout earlier from the Metagross. Tailwind is also about to expire, and Incineroar comes out, which, you know, we'll be able to get an Intimidate off here. Amoonguss is going to come out. One thing I was slightly curious about from Jeremy's end is if he did bring the Amoonguss, and that last one is that Tapu Lele, by giving up Metagross like that, his answers against this Incineroar are actually not very great. So even though I feel like Jeremy's played pretty well right now, if Tapu Lele is the last Pokemon in the back, this still could be a really scary game for him.
Yeah, last Pokemon going to matter pretty heavily for Jeremy. Incineroar, we saw last game, had a strong matchup against most of the Pokemon that Jeremy brought, but got sniped pretty early on by Jeremy. So Incineroar now at full health, threatening fake outs, threatening flare blitzes, threatening knockoffs, while Zapdos still able to threaten heat waves and reset Tailwind if it needs to.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the Zapdos is a pretty bulky one. It does have Heat Wave. An Ally Switch comes out.
Rotom Heat showing Ally Switch, trying to protect Amoonguss here. Zapdos' Heat Wave misses Rotom, but will connect with the Amoonguss in the new slot. Deals just under 50% damage.
Oh, who's it going into?
Flare Blitz. Was it trying to target down the Rotom Heat? No, it was trying to target down the Amoonguss. Gets tripped up by the Ally Switch. Incineroar will pick up that KO here, but now Amoonguss free to spore the Zapdos.
Yeah, and this is one of the things about Amoonguss that I thought, which is why I was surprised Jeremy brought in the first place. I think that first game demonstrated why it was really good.
And now Tailwind.
Yeah, Tailwind ends, but Amoonguss isn't doing any damage. Now, if Landorus comes out right now, that would probably be the perfect Pokemon for Jeremy to have. But it is the Tapu Lele. And that makes this a little bit trickier because you know, Tapu Lele's damage output obviously quite good against Zapdos. Against Incineroar, a little bit scarier. So this will be a close finish to the game depending on how this Incineroar is trained and what item it has. But yeah, I think like Jeremy's played this game really, really well, but by kind of playing so aggressively under those couple of turns of Tailwind, now he's stuck with really one main means of offense, but Amoonguss at least a pretty good support Pokemon. That being said, it will go down to just a Flare Blitz, and Incineroar should still be faster than the Amoonguss. There are a lot of mind games right now, though, with the potential Ally Switch. Or no more Ally Switch.
No more
That's
Ally
out of the
Switch.
way.
Amoonguss will protect this turn.
Unless Tapu Lele has it as well.
Zapdos does not get a chance to attack this turn because of the Spore. Moonblast will connect with Incineroar.
Oh,
a lot of damage! A critical hit! 5 hit points. Incineroar just barely hangs on, able to eat its Figgy Berry, heal up a lot of that damage right back, and fire an attack off. Zapdos, of course, still asleep, not able to move right now. Flare Blitz from Incineroar hits the protect of the Amoonguss. So Jeremy getting a bunch of damage onto Incineroar. Another Moonblast will be enough to pick up the KO. Zapdos needs to wake up if Justin is going to have a prayer here.
Yeah, good target onto the Incineroar there. I think that's definitely the bigger threat, and Zapdos plus Amoonguss, or Tapu Lele plus Amoonguss should be able to deal with the Zapdos in the late game. I'm not sure if another Moonblast will knock out the Incineroar, so that's really what it's going to come down to, because I think Zapdos will actually win 1v1 against Tapu Lele with the means of recovery. Is the Moonblast going to be enough?
It is enough! Incineroar goes down to Tapu Lele's Moonblast. Most of Justin's offense is up, but Zapdos wakes up!
Oh,
gets a Tailwind. Already trying to make sure that Zapdos can be faster than the Tapu Lele. Clear Smog coming out from Amoonguss. So not going to be able, not going for another spore to keep Zapdos in a sleep lock here. Just a little bit of damage. Zapdos now faster than Tapu Lele and, of course, the Amoonguss, but still probably going to be forced into heat waves here as Tapu Lele goes for a protect.
Tapu Lele going for the protect Zapdos, yeah, probably just going to have to spam Heat Wave, but Amoonguss should be able to survive this unless a critical hit happens. Should be able to put the Zapdos to sleep, and then you just Psychic, and no, it's not enough.
No crit. Amoonguss able to eat that his own berry, going to heal right back up and put Zapdos to sleep with another Spore here. And with that Spore, Zapdos is guaranteed at least one turn of sleep, and all Jeremy has to do is click the Psychic button or the Moonblast button and win the game from here and become our champion.
Yeah, Jeremy played really, really well. I think he had figured out a great lead matchup to counter Tapu Fini Zapdos, which I feel like was Justin's best lead option. And at least gave Justin more outs than any of the other leads he could have had. Psychic is going to knock out Zapdos, and Jeremy Rodriguez is your 2018 North American International Champion in the Masters Division.
Such a strong two-game win there from Jeremy. 4-0 in the first game, and then 2-0 here in the second. Always felt like he was in control there, and bringing that Amoonguss, putting those spores down on Zapdos, punishing Justin's switches. Such a strong showing there from Jeremy.
Yeah, and I think